Speaking with Serpents, Chapter 2, Introducing Remus Lupin. Harry eyed Remus Lupin critically over the remnants of his French toast. It's mostly crumbs and syrup, and only that much because he doubted McGonagall would be pleased if he licked the plate clean. Lupin was tall, thin, and rather sorry-looking, particularly next to the two witches. Harry possessed two of those three qualities himself, so he supposed he couldn't judge overly much. He could be as judgmental as he pleased about the look on Lupin's face, however, which was rather like someone who had seen a ghost. "Harry?" he asked faintly. "Remus, good evening. Or morning, as the case may be. Good of you to come on such short notice," McGonagall said. "Harry, this is Remus Lupin." "Hi," Harry said cautiously. "Hello, Harry." Lupin cleared his throat. "I haven't seen you since you were a baby." "I don't remember you," Harry said, unsure what else to say. "I'm sorry." "No, that's for the best." Lupin glanced at Amelia. "Why am I here?" "Because Minerva doesn't believe laws apply to her," Amelia muttered. "Because I am hoping you would be willing to take Harry in," McGonagall said, ignoring Amelia. Lupin blinked at them, then at Harry. "I'd love to, of course, but there's the matter of my condition." That sounded like an excuse to Harry, who hastened to reassure the man. "You don't have to if you don't want to. I'll understand." "No, that's not it at all." Frustration flashed across Lupin's face so quickly Harry nearly missed it. It was replaced by the kind of bone-deep exhaustion a lifetime of uncomfortable conversations causes. "Harry, I'm dangerous. I'm a werewolf. And I'm apparently a wizard. So?" "Petunia didn't tell him anything," McGonagall said softly. "He doesn't know." "You left him with Petunia? That Hoppy?" Lupin demands, distracted from whatever internal agonizing he'd been doing. "She hated Lily and James." Well, Harry reflected, at least he had that in common with his parents. If Aunt Petunia didn't like his parents, maybe his parents would have liked him, if they'd lived. It was a good feeling. Aloud, he said, "I'm right here, you know. What's wrong with being a werewolf?" The adults exchanged glances. Harry hated it when adults did that. "I'm a monster, Harry. I couldn't take care of you." "You don't have to take care of me," Harry argued. He hadn't realized how much hope McGonagall's appearance had sparked in him. He wasn't going to lose that feeling just because Lupin had self-esteem issues. Not without a fight. "I can cook and clean, and I'll stay out of your way. You won't even know I'm there." "Why don't we return to the Dursleys' house and discuss this more?" McGonagall said. Harry frowned at her. This could be a trick to get him to return without a fuss. If that was the case, she needn't have bothered. It wasn't as if he had anywhere else to go. Now he looked thoughtfully at Lupin. McGonagall had been upset about the cupboard. If Lupin had known and liked his parents, then perhaps he would also be upset about the cupboard, and McGonagall was counting on that to manipulate him into taking Harry. Harry himself would prefer to live with someone who actually wanted him, but it was starting to look as if that wasn't an option. He'd had rather enough of the devil he knew, so perhaps it was time for the devil he didn't. It was possible, Harry thought, that Lupin could be worse than the Dursleys. More than possible. Uncle Vernon was fond of detailing the worst of what happened to children in foster care whenever he felt that Harry had grown too comfortable with his lot in life. Then again, there were 3 Dursleys and only 1 Lupin. Not bad odds, and Amelia, for all that she was some sort of cop and Harry wasn't impressed with the legal system, didn't appear to find Lupin threatening. That was a good sign, too. He watched as McGonagall paid the bill, then reluctantly took her arm for another horrible teleportation trip. "Number 4 Privet Drive," she told Lupin and Amelia before vanishing, taking Harry with her. They reappeared in the back garden with a soft pop, startling the lone grass snake getting a head start on the day. It was, Harry realized, approaching dawn. "Ah!" said the snake. "Sorry, we didn't mean to startle you," Harry told her. McGonagall, who had twitched when he started hissing, stared at him. "Is there a snake here?" she asked. "Here." Harry gestured at where the snake had positioned herself in the best place to catch the first rays of the sun. "This is McGonagall. She's a witch." "Can she speak like you?" "I don't think so." "Then I don't care who she is. Tell her not to step on me." "What did you say?" McGonagall asked, sounding somewhat between curious and full of trepidation. "I told her your name and that you're a witch," Harry explained. "She wanted to know if you could speak like I can, and when I said you can't, she said that she doesn't care who you are as long as you don't step on her by accident." "I see," McGonagall said. "Snakes don't really care about people." Harry felt obligated to tell her. "It's not personal." "No, that's fine. Seeing you speak to her was just unexpected. I won't talk to them around you if you don't like it," Harry offered, figuring that perhaps whoever she had known that could talk to snakes in the past had hurt her somehow, and now the hissing made her think of him. Men with mustaches and women wearing pearls like Aunt Petunia does make him feel sick to his stomach, even if they were strangers he'd never met, so he understood. Amelia and Lupin appeared before she could respond, making the snake curse. "I can hold you if you're worried about being stepped on," Harry told her. "I'm warm." "Yes, that would be good. This is almost as bad as that last garden party that horrible woman had." Harry hadn't liked Aunt Petunia's last garden party either, mainly because he'd spent the entire afternoon in his cupboard and then had to clean up afterward. He reached down and picked up the snake, letting her crawl into the sleeve of his oversized sweatshirt. He looked to find Amelia and Lupin staring at him in open-mouthed amazement. "She didn't want to be stepped on," Harry said. "Harry's a possum mouth," McGonagall added. "Surprise!" "That's quite a unique ability," Amelia said, once she'd recovered from the shock. "I wasn't aware that particular trait ran in the Potter family." "It doesn't," Lupin told her, "but James's mother was black." Amelia eyed Harry with renewed interest. "That's right. Dorea was always so kind. She made it easy to forget." "What's that have to do with anything?" Harry asked. "The Blacks were, I suppose, a very old wizarding family. There are a lot of normally recessive traits you might have inherited, and since Lily was Muggle-born, they might have come through," Lupin explained. Harry still wasn't sure what any of that meant, but the adults had shifted to debating whether they should wake up the Dursleys. His vote was a resounding no, but it didn't look like they were going to ask him. "Should at least explain where he's been," Amelia said, which didn't bode well for Harry leaving and never coming back. "Really, I doubt they noticed," he said as soon as there was a pause in the conversation, and then he took a chance. "I can lock myself back in my cupboard." It paid off. "Your what?" Lupin asked, having gone very still. "I sleep in the cupboard under the stairs," Harry said. "They lock me in at night and sometimes during the day when they're angry with me. They don't know I can undo the lock, so long as I'm there when Aunt Petunia gets up. They won't know I've been gone." "Why don't you show us your cupboard, Harry?" Amelia asked. "Here, I'll silence and disillusion us." She did something complicated with her wand that made it feel as if someone had cracked an egg over Harry's head, and when he looked down, his skin and clothes looked like a chameleon's. He blended in completely with the garden shed. "Whatever that was, I hated it," grumbled the snake in his sleeve. Harry ignored her and led the adults into the house, creeping carefully to avoid making any noise. He opened his cupboard and gestured at its interior. Amelia lit her wand, and then they stood around staring. None of them said anything. Harry started to feel self-conscious. It wasn't much, but they'd known it was a cupboard, so they had no right to judge. And it was his. Perhaps they didn't like the spiders? Harry knew Aunt Petunia hated them, but it wasn't as if they were hurting anyone. It was nice to have company sometimes, too. He'd scratched Harry's room into a board with a nail several years ago. Did they think that was immature? Disrespectful? He was sure the Dursleys would be angry if they ever noticed. "Pack your things," Lupin said tightly. "You can live with me." Harry didn't move. "Are you mad at me?" "At you? No. At the Dursleys? Yes. Dumbledore? Absolutely. Amelia, so help me, Merlin, if you try and stop me." "I won't," Amelia said. "As it happens, I believe the Ministry just lost all of the files they had relating to both you and Harry. What a shame. We really ought to update the filing system. They told Lorcan McLaird nothing good would come from giving the memos sentience, etc., etc." Harry took the biggest shirt he had, the one he usually used as a blanket, and laid it out flat. He piled the rest of his clothes on top of it, along with the tattered books he'd rescued when Dudley threw them out, his flashlight also pilfered. He completed his packing with several half-melted plastic toy soldiers, more victims of Dudley's destructive impulses. "Okay," Harry said, picking up each of the shirt's four corners so it acted like a bag. "I'm packed." It was then that he realized that the adults' lips were moving, but he couldn't hear them. They appeared to be in the middle of a heated argument. McGonagall was waving her finger in Amelia's face. Lupin had a white-knuckled grip on his wand. The snake stuck her head out of his sleeve. "This is your nest?" she asked disapprovingly. "You should have lived under the shed with us." "I don't think I would have fit." "Nonsense. We could have dug you a nice space. You produce so much heat, we would have welcomed you." "I'll miss you," Harry said, the reality that he was leaving beginning to set in as he stared at his possessions. "You'll be careful, won't you? I don't want the Dursleys to hurt you. They'll kill you and crush the eggs if they find you." "They are very stupid," the snake said reassuringly. "They won't find us." "If you're sure. Is there anything I can do for you before I leave?" "What did that book you told us about say? We are the peak of evolution. We survived millions of years without you, and will survive millions more." "Hey," the snake said, situating herself so she could look him in the eye. "That doesn't mean we won't miss you too, though." Harry scrubbed his eyes with a sleeve that didn't contain the snake. The motion attracted the adult's attention. "Are you all right, Harry?" Lupin asked, suddenly audible again. Harry nodded quickly. "I was saying goodbye to the snake. Do you mind if I say goodbye to the rest of them before we go?" "Not at all." Harry picked up his shirt bag and headed out to the back garden again, trailed awkwardly by the three adults. McGonagall was still hissing furiously at Amelia, but Harry couldn't make out what she was saying. The sun had just started to peek over the roof of number 2, so Harry set the snake down in a weak patch of sun. "Come out!" she shouted, as much as a snake could shout anyway. "The speaker is leaving his nest." Snakes began to pour out from under the shed immediately, so quickly that McGonagall took a step back. "He's what? Why? Good for him. Is there not enough prey for him here? I'm going to live with this man. Harry gestured at Lupin. He'll be nicer to me. The snakes studied Lupin, tasting the air around him with their tongues. Finally, they decided they approved. Harry was secretly relieved. He trusted their judgment more than his own. He said goodbye to them each, individually, with a wary eye on the adults for any sign of impatience. Amelia and McGonagall continued to argue. Lupin watched the snakes with almost as much interest as they watched him. None of them looked impatient. Finally, Harry hefted his bag. I'm ready to go. Do you want to tell the Dursleys you're leaving? Lupin asked. Harry thought about the Uncle Vernon-shaped bomb that was likely to set off. No, he said, I'd rather not. I'll explain it to them then. McGonagall muttered. Actually, I will, said Amelia, glaring at her friend, seeing as I have no desire to bail you out of Muggle jail again. Lupin turned to look at them with something akin to amazement. You've been arrested, Minerva? McGonagall sniffed. And you haven't? Anyway, it was the 60s, and I was justified. Does Dumbledore know? Lupin wanted to know. What Dumbledore doesn't know won't hurt him. Although, she directed an angry look in the direction of the house. I might. All right, Amelia said, a little too brightly. Harry, I'm sure you're exhausted. Why don't you and Remus go home and get some sleep? When you've rested up, you can go shopping. Shopping? Harry asked. What for? A new wardrobe, books, school supplies, toys, furniture, anything you want, said Amelia. My treat. I can cover it, McGonagall protested. I'm technically in charge of the black assets, Lupin said, albeit in a much quieter voice. I haven't touched them, of course, not after what he did, but it would be rather poetic to spend that money on Harry, don't you think? It would, Amelia agreed, and McGonagall nodded. That settles it, she said. Harry, I'll be seeing you in September. Please feel free to write if you need anything. Likewise, Amelia said. It was lovely to meet you. You too, Harry replied, slightly stunned by how quickly things had happened. Shall we? Lupin offered Harry his arm. More, Harry started to say, intending to complain about the discomfort associated with teleportation. They disappeared into nothingness before he could. Ugh. Ooh, okay, that was a pretty short chapter. Nice. Chapter 2 is done. Next chapters, Chapter 3, New Home. Where we introduce... I'm just kidding. Alright, see you in the next chapter. Alright, Chapter 3, New Home. Author notes. Okay, so we're not quite at Diagon Alley yet because I got distracted, but next chapter for sure. Please tell me if you notice me slipping into present tense anywhere. This is the only thing I'm writing in past tense right now, / in the present here, and switching back and forth is not going well. I went over this 4 times. My brain remains stubbornly in third person present. Chapter 3, New Home. After he was done feeling sick to his stomach, Harry studied his surroundings. Remus Lupin's house looked exactly like one might imagine a werewolf's house would look, he reflected, if one assumed werewolves spent their human time as vaguely careworn men in their early 30s. It was a small cottage of sorts, made of stone and covered in ivy. The garden was a riot of color, full of plants he didn't recognize and wildly overgrown. It made up the entirety of the yard. There wasn't a lawn or a driveway. The property was surrounded by trees, which extended as far as Harry could see. It's not much, Lupin said apologetically. It's brilliant, Harry told him. Where are we? Do you have snakes? Lupin blinked at him. We're in the magical part of Kildare Forest in Northumberland. I don't know about snakes. I've never seen one around. But they're not exactly sociable creatures. You can explore all you'd like later, but I'm sure you're exhausted. Let me show you your room. The inside of the cottage looked more like an antique shop than a house. The light streaming through the curtains was almost sepia-toned. Overstuffed bookshelves lined every wall, and all of the furniture was a mash of orange, green, and unspeakable patterns that implied the decor had last been updated in the 70s. Lupin picked his way through the cluttered living room and a surprisingly clean kitchen to a tiny back entryway. He waved his wand, and a ladder appeared along with a trapdoor in the ceiling. The glance he shot Harry was a little anxious, as if he was afraid of what Harry would think. Personally, Harry thought that a bedroom that could only be accessed by climbing a ladder and then squeezing through a trapdoor was, in a word, wicked. I bought this house using my mother's maiden name during the war, Lupin explained. That way it would be harder to trace. The attic is a very small suite I set up as a safe room. Operatives that needed to lay low used to stay here. I haven't been up there in years, he frowned. Actually, before I let you up, I should make sure no one left any dirty magazines or alcohol lying around. And I should clean it. I
can't imagine the dust by now. Sorry. I'd have done all this earlier if I'd known why Minerva was calling. She seems nice, Harry hazarded. Her and Amelia both. Lupin scrambled up the ladder with surprising agility. They are, he agreed, opening the trapdoor. He sneezed 4 times in rapid succession, and Harry was briefly afraid he was going to fall. But then he climbed the rest of the way into the room above. If they ever stopped bickering, they'd be a force to be reckoned with. I was right about the dust. He sneezed again. I was right about the dust. Here, he sneezed again. And the magazines. Merlin. Caradoc Dearborn was the last to stay here, I think, so I can't be too angry. Poor Best. That's not better. Dang, fellow. What happened to him? Harry wanted to know. Lupin sneezed again. Hard to say. Probably murdered. We never did find his body. My bet is they turned him into an Inferius. Oh, what? A bit like a Muggle zombie, except zombies are naturally occurring and have wills of their own. Inferi are just puppets. That, Harry thought, was rather horrible. Also, are zombies real? Most things are real. Unicorns? Yes, there's a herd of them in Kildare, actually. You might even see them. They like women and children. Vampires? They're real too. Most don't actively hunt humans, but you'll still find them unsettling. Humans have a sort of instinct that recognizes them as a predator. Are werewolves human? Sort of. The biology behind lycanthropy is quite fascinating. It's technically a virus, but it modifies the host DNA to the point that it's nearly unrecognizable. It's enough to change the host's sense of smell, their hearing, their bone density, and even their general body composition. Werewolves have, on average, 5% more skeletal muscle than the average human. None of that meant much to Harry, who was distracted by another thought. Are there species of magical snakes? Are hydras real? Basilisks? Cockatrices? What about dragons? Yes to all. Although it's been several hundred years since a basilisk was last seen. Do you ever get tired of asking questions? Harry considered this. The Dursleys didn't like it when I asked questions, so I guess I've never had the chance to. Well, you can ask me as many questions as you'd like, although I can't guarantee I'll know the answers to them. I'll order books about anything you'd like. Lupin's feet emerged from the trapdoor, followed by the rest of him. There, he said, sounding satisfied. It ought to be habitable now. Harry eyed the items he was carrying with thinly veiled skepticism. He had a stack of magazines clutched to his chest, and Harry could just make out a pair of hills on the corner of one cover. He also had some sort of dusty bottle that was giving off a smell like rubbing alcohol. Somehow, Harry doubted it was a cleaning product. Go on up, Lupin said encouragingly. We'll go shopping tomorrow, so be thinking about what you want. If you want to vanish the ladder and hide the door once you're up there, just tap the top right corner of the door 3 times. It's the same to bring the ladder back. Harry nodded, still having a hard time believing that magic was a thing he could do. He made his way up the ladder, dragging his makeshift t-shirt bag behind him. He tapped the upper right corner of the door per Lupin's instructions, blinking when it vanished. He squinted. It hadn't quite vanished. He could see the faint outline of the door. He tapped it again, and it reappeared. Again, and it vanished. That was incredibly cool. He looked around, studying the room. The first thing he noticed was that there was a window. It was already better than his cupboard in that respect. The window was framed by green flannel curtains and set out of the wall to make room for a nook, which at this time of day was soaked in a weak beam of sunlight. Centered against the far wall was a full-sized bed, and in one corner was a bookshelf. Lupin evidently hadn't picked it over thoroughly, because even from here Harry could see several battered paperbacks whose covers were comprised primarily of abs. The rest of the books were all westerns, and there was a single newspaper dated May of 1981. He continued to poke around. The first door he tried led to a closet. It contained a dresser and several jackets with impressive shoulder pads. The other door in the room led to a small bathroom, just big enough for a shower, toilet, and sink. The wallpaper was a satiny texture, and it was striped in 2 different shades of apricot. Harry unpacked his possessions. The Hobbit, Black Beauty, Charlotte's Web, and The Once and Future King went on the bookshelf, as did the toy soldiers. He folded his clothes and packed them into the dresser, all except for the biggest shirt. He placed his flashlight within easy reach, and after closing the curtains to block out the sun, Harry slipped into the bed, curled around the shirt, and went to sleep. It was dark when Harry woke up, unsure where he was. He was in a bed. Why? Right. He was living with Lupin now, who was apparently a werewolf because werewolves were real. So were wizards, evidently, because he himself was one. Harry stared into the gloom. Being a wizard wasn't doing him much good so far, especially since he had yet to develop the ability to see in the dark. He gave up on going back to sleep and grabbed his flashlight. It had been just past dawn when he went to bed. That meant he slept the day away. He got up and fumbled around for a light switch for a while but couldn't find one. Giving up on that too, he went to the bathroom and showered in the dark so as to not waste the flashlight's battery. It wasn't so bad, he reflected. He couldn't see the horrible striped wallpaper in the dark. He changed into clean clothes, then sat in the blackness of the room for a while. That didn't last for long. Harry was easily bored. He tapped the wooden frame of the trap door to make it reappear, then carefully crept down the ladder. It was dark on the first floor of the cottage, too. There was no glowing clock face that he could see, so he was left stumbling around in the dark, aided only by the weak light of his flashlight until a brighter light appeared under a doorway. "Harry," Lupin called. Harry froze, cursing himself. "Sorry, Mr. Lupin," he said. "I didn't mean to wake you up." Lupin emerged from his room. He was holding his wand in one hand, which was what was producing the light. He was also wearing the most obnoxious red and gold-checked pajamas Harry had ever seen. "Please, call me Remus." Lupin, or Remus, Harry guessed, said. "And don't worry about it. I was awake. We've really done a number on our sleeping habits, haven't we?" Harry, who had been cringing in preparation of being shouted at, and thinking bitterly that Remus should have locked him in the attic if he hadn't wanted him wandering around, considered that. "Really?" he asked. "Really what?" Remus pointed his wand in the direction of the fireplace, shot a flame at it, and then flopped into one of the overstuffed armchairs. Harry stared at the fireplace in shock. Where there had once been dry wood, there was now a cheerfully crackling fire. Could magic really do all of that? He shook himself. "Were you really awake?" "I usually am," Remus said regretfully. "Would you like some breakfast? It's a tad early, but we'll get back on track eventually." Said Harry. "Sure. Do you want me to cook?" "Are you worried I'll poison you?" "No! No, of course not. It's just that the Dursleys—" "Thankfully for both of us, I'm not the Dursleys. As I recall, Petunia's husband was rather unfortunate looking." "Right," said Harry. Uncle Vernon was unfortunate looking, it was true. A mustache somehow constantly full of crumbs, combined with gin blossoms from a lifetime of moderate, white-collar alcoholism, did no one any favors. Still, it was odd to hear someone say it out loud. "Any food allergies or sensitivities?" Remus asked. "Any what?" Harry wanted to know. "Allergies? Intolerances?" "I don't know," Harry said honestly. His stomach hurt after eating sometimes, but it was hard to say why. It could be because he wasn't getting enough to eat. It could be because, in truly desperate times, he snuck food out of the trash. Telling Remus that would probably just upset him. Remus studied him. "When was the last time you saw a doctor?" Harry shrugged. "I got vaccinated before I started school, I think." "Eye doctor? Dentist?" "I got glasses when I started school, too," Harry said. "I don't know if I've ever seen a dentist. Is it as bad as everyone says?" "I can't say I love Muggle dentists," Remus said. "But it's not terrible, no." The light from the fire was throwing the scars on Remus's face into sharp relief, so Harry wasn't sure he believed him. Remus might not think the dentist was terrible compared to whatever had done that to him, but a normal person would probably disagree. Harry said, because it seemed like he ought to say something. "Magical healing isn't so bad," Remus offered. "Although after enough of it, you tend to build up a tolerance. We should get you looked at and vaccinated against magical illnesses. There's a clinic off Diagon Alley that takes walk-ins. Is that all right?" "Sure," Harry said. Even if it was unpleasant, it would still be a new experience. "Perfect. Let's see. What else? I should make a list. Breakfast first, though. Here, sit down." Remus got up from his chair and pulled up a different chair at the kitchen table, gesturing for Harry to sit. Harry sat, watching as Remus bustled around the kitchen, lighting candles and muttering to himself. It was odd to watch someone else prepare breakfast, and it made Harry feel vaguely guilty. "Are you sure you don't need help?" Harry finally asked. Remus jumped back to avoid being splattered with bacon grease. "I've got it under control, I think. Now, if you'd like to make a list." "Sure," said Harry, eager to be helpful. With a wave of his wand, Remus sent a scroll of parchment, a small dark bottle, and a feather in Harry's direction. They settled gently on the table in front of him. Harry stared at them. What am I supposed to do with these?" "Right," said Remus. "Item number 1 will be teaching how to write with a quill. It takes some getting used to. In the meantime, I think there's a pencil in the coffee cup over on that bookshelf over there." Harry went and found the coffee cup. It had a thin ring of gray mold in it, like maybe Remus hadn't washed it before turning it into a container for writing utensils. He grimaced, but grabbed the pencil and went back to the table. "Teach Harry to write with a quill," he wrote at the top of the parchment, followed by, "Go to doctor?" "What else are we doing?" Harry asked. "Have you still got your Hogwarts letter?" Harry nodded. "Up in the attic. Add school supply shopping to the list. Add clothes shopping. New bedclothes. Do you need anything for furniture? Toys?" said Harry. Don't worry about it. We can decide when we get there. Remus set a plot of bacon, toast, and eggs in front of Harry. I'm afraid I don't have any milk or orange juice at the moment. Is water all right? We can go grocery shopping, too. Water is fine, Harry said, around a mouthful of bacon. Thank you. Sure thing, Remus said. Harry watched as he opened a letter-bound book in a language he didn't recognize. Harry kept watching for the next half hour as Remus sipped his coffee, read his book, and ate his breakfast. It was fascinating. Excluding the Dursleys, McGonagall was the only other person he'd had breakfast with. He'd been too surprised and exhausted to really appreciate being able to eat without being screamed at. This was a novelty. He couldn't wait to see what happened next. Woo! We're done with Chapter 3. Okay. Next chapter, Chapter 4, Gringotts. Okay. The summary is Gringotts. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next chapter. Goodbye!